So step one is always going to be to pick your protein source and to make sure that we're getting an adequate amount. Step two is to include some non-starchy vegetables. Step three is going to be adding some fats for flavor and satiety. And then step four is to add in some of those complex carbohydrates based on your carb goals. How much protein do I need to add on a low carbohydrate meal plan? A good place to start with your protein intake is to include around 4 to 5 ounces of protein at each meal. Generally, as a guideline, 4 to 5 ounces of animal protein like fish, chicken, beef, pork, and others, it's going to be about a little bit bigger than the size of your palm and about the thickness of a deck of cards. Figuring out how much protein is right for you may take a little bit of time, but we want to make sure that you adapt it based on your hunger cues as well as your activity level. Now, depending on your hunger level and how satisfied you feel after your meal, you may consider adding a little bit more or even a little bit less. The important thing to know here is that there is no need to count your protein intake as long as you're following that 4-step process for creating a balanced low-carb meal. The common animal-based protein sources include things like poultry, red meat, we have eggs, and canned protein as well. So things like canned tuna, canned chicken, canned crab, and other canned fish. We also find a lot of protein contained in some dairy products like Greek yogurt, cheeses, fish and seafood is a great choice as well. And then when we're looking at plant-based sources of protein, we have options like soy-based products such as tofu or tempeh, as well as beans and lentils, nuts and seeds too. How much fats do I need to add on a low-carb meal plan? Now, the fats that you add are there to help you to feel full and satisfied. One of the important adaptations here is to really hone in and listen to your hunger cues. We want to prevent situations where you end up feeling hungry all the time between meals because you're avoiding fats, but you also don't need to consume excessive amounts of fat, as a little bit can go a long way with these ingredients. So together, this would mean that we want to use fats to add flavor and texture and variety to our food and meals, and to make it more of an enjoyable and satisfying experience. A good place to start is to choose 1 or 2 sources of fats at each meal and use it to saute your vegetables, or perhaps it's going to be included already in the protein source that you're using. For example, fattier cuts of meat, or leaving the skin on chicken or turkey, or using fatty cuts of fish like salmon or mackerel. Now, as you can see here, there are many different sources of fats that you may want to include. This includes dairy sources and cheeses, so things like Greek yogurt, heavy cream, butter, different varieties of cheeses, oils such as olive oil, avocado oil, nuts and seeds, as well as nut butters, full fat dressings and sauces, and non-dairy fats, so things like ghee or coconut milk, etc., and duck fat. So there are plenty of different sources to choose from as part of your cooking, but we always encourage you to add some fats for flavor. Start with a little bit and add a little bit more depending on your hunger and satisfaction.